What a turnout, thank you very much. I'm going to get on with it, if that's all right. Here is what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about two of the fundamental things. Can you actually read that? Is that okay? We're going to talk about keeping clear and giving room and what's the difference. Because if you haven't got that locked in, you'll struggle around the racetrack. I'm also going to talk about what I call the nature of the rules, which can lead to a bit more general discussion, and it's about how do you want to play the game in the end. As Roger's alluded to, I firmly believe each group of people need to decide how you want to play the game. So we'll talk more about that. I've had a whole bunch of questions, and thank you for those who have questioned me. I have the best set of questions I've ever seen come in, and I've been desperately trying to write slides to answer all the questions, and I've probably got about half of them done. So we'll see how far. I've got one slide with all the questions on, so we can talk about them briefly. The other important thing is, two things for me. This presentation, I will copy it. It will come to the club, to Roger, and anybody who wants it can have it. It comes as we call it PDF format, so you can't play with it. And I'd say to people now learning the rules, would you expect to learn how to tack a boat really well by doing one tack? Would you learn your way around this piece of water by going sailing on it once? Why would you expect to know the rules by coming to one lecture?
So we need to come back next year as well, is that right?
I'm selling more time. It will only work if you actually do. When you get questions and you get issues, if you actually talk about it, you go through it, and please use this, I call this my friend, the rule book, because the answer is nearly always here. The tricky bit is finding where the hell it is in this book, because it's not the easiest book to find your way around. I'm just trying to say, don't have any expectations that listening to me once, and some came last year, you hear a lot of it, the rules haven't changed since last year, so inevitably there's a bit of repeat. But as I say, you've probably done more than one tack in the last year. So please don't be too surprised. I've tried to do things a little bit differently this year. You'll find in each half row, one of you should have a pack of cards, which have got 7 different colours in them. The idea is going to be, at times, I'm going to say, which colour boat do you think has to keep clear? Which colour boat has to give room? And you're going to talk very quickly, it's not going to take long, on your row and decide which colour you're going to put up. And then I'll call 3, 2, 1, and you put up the colour. What that does is it helps engage people a little bit in what's going on. It also shows me immediately whether we've got a common understanding of that situation, or we've got differences of opinion that we need to understand. So it's not a test, but it is really helpful for me to get that information. So we'll try that, we'll see how well it works. It's quite a big group, so I'll try to respond to questions and things. It's really important. If there's anything I say that you do not understand, there's no point in me saying anything else until you've understood it. So please, if there's something that you don't understand, or I say something unclearly, and I have been known to make the odd mistake. I did it in an umpire seminar once, international, and they all went and did the test that they have to do. And it's a really simple question, and they all got the answer wrong. And we're marking it, and they said, "But John, you said..." And true enough, I had said something completely wrong. So they'd all answer it wrong. So it does happen. So if you think something's not right, please shout up, hand up, "John, hang on." Will work quite well. Apart from that, because we've got quite a lot to get through, I'm going to need a little bit of help from you. I don't know how much detail you want to get in. I call it unwrapping the rules and understanding. If I can tell you, I can spend 3 hours on the first question, which is probably not what you want. On the other hand, you probably want enough depth to understand enough to go and take away. it's really hard here for me to judge how much unwrapping, how much to move on. So I'm going to do my best, but if you feel that pace is wrong, please ask me. If I slow down, we're not going to cover as much material. Can't invent time. Is that okay?
Yep.
Grand. Well, so I don't get on. So the first session, as Roger said, is till about 11:45. A quick break, please. If you haven't checked in for lunch, please go across and make sure that you're booked in for lunch. Second session will go up till 1 o'clock. Lunch is 1 o'clock. Third session will probably start 1:45, something like that. There'll probably be less people, so it'll be a bit less formal than a presentation style. And at 5 o'clock, it's Ireland versus England. And I will be home by then. Okay, so we're going to start off looking at the racing rules. And you may have seen this or remember this from last year. If you unpack the racing rules part 2, which is the rules that most of you, I guess, are interested in, the rules of when people meet on the water. That's what we're going to focus most of the day on. There's some of the questions that look at other aspects of the rules. If you unpack the rules, you can unpack them into these 4 columns. Some rules tell you to keep clear, some rules tell you to give room, some rules talk about your proper course, some rules talk about not hitting anybody else, capsized boats, and not interfering with boats racing. And they all start, by the way, with if possible, do not have contact. It's a bit of a surprise to some people that there's no rule in the book that says there's no rule that says do not hit another boat. There's a rule that says if possible, do not hit another boat. That's a whole different ballgame on the start line sometimes, as I'm sure we all know. I find this structure, unpacking the rule into these columns, really helpful when I'm on the water, either umpiring or sailing. And I'm going to go through that and show that. Does anybody remember this from last year?
Yeah.
Oh, good. We're not starting from 0, but again, we're starting from, some people know quite a lot, some people know a little bit less. So we're just got to play with everybody. Well, today we are going to focus on the keep clear and giving room bits. We can do some of the other bits after lunch if people really wish to get into it. So let us just start. Because the text is a bit small, I will have to read most of the text to you, but that will help you see what's on the screen as well. We always start looking at 2 boats, and we always start working out which boat has to keep clear of the other. Every scenario, mark rounding, obstructions, anything. We always start, and we always want to know who has to keep clear. And there's only 8 rules in the book that have that phrase in the rule. This boat shall keep clear. The first 4, you probably could reel off. What are they? Port starboard, windward leeward, head astern, tacking. And then there's 4, which one will affect you, and in fact it's one of the subjects of the question, so we'll deal with it later if we get a chance. Continuous obstructions. How do we handle continuous obstructions? It changes some of the right of way in some circumstances. And then if you're returning to start, even if you're on starboard going through a fleet of boats on port, you have to keep clear of them once you start returning. If you start sailing backwards, now I know X-boats are not supposed to sail backwards. So I'm crewing an X-boat this year, so I could be rude as hell about X-boats. It's really a rule that's used for dinghies, lasers, windsurfers on the start line, backing the sail to control their position on the start. But it's like driving on the motorway. If you go in reverse and go backwards and hit the car behind you, your fault. If you're taking a penalty, while you're taking a penalty, you have to keep clear. And that's it. There are no other rules that talk about keeping clear. So it's not that hard a list to remember. So the rules will always tell one boat to keep clear of the other. And they all have that phrase, shall keep clear, and no other rules have that phrase. So we don't have to look anywhere else. And I keep labouring this. I will bet you when we get to mark rounding, you're going to go, oh, but that boat has to keep clear. And I go, it's not on that list. There is nothing about mark rounding in that list. The good news is, between any two boats, there's always one of these rules that apply, and there's only one. So whenever you look at a situation with two boats, you can go through that list of rules and you can go, that's the rule that applies. We're going to test that a little bit as we go through. And if we've got questions, mostly I've got this so that if you've got particular things you want to talk about, I can put the situation on the whiteboard and we can talk about it. I might come to the whiteboard if I'm trying to explain something myself. So there's always one of those rules that applies between two boats, and there's only one that applies. That has a consequence. And the consequence is that when something changes between the two boats, the rule changes. So I will try to very quickly just turn this at an angle so that people have got a chance. Can everybody sort of see? Is that enough? Yeah. So let's just very quickly test. So let's say we start off in that situation. The wind's always from the top of the diagram. No tricks. Which boat has to keep clear? Which rule did you apply? You went down the list, find the one, that's it, keep clear. And it will happen like that. If you keep going through that process every time, you can do it at racing speed. Not protest committee speed, reading the rule book. Well, that's what I learned. To go when we went umpiring, we learned that we had to apply the rules at the same speed that boats go racing, which is why this is so useful for people that race boats, not just sit in a protest room. Okay, so what happens is, I'm going to probably leave the blue boat standing still in the water because it's just difficult to get both hands. What happens is yellow decides to attack and passes head to wind. Which boat now has to keep clear? Why? Rule 13. What was the time delay between windward leeward rule and tacking rule? 0. It switches like a light switch, instantly. We're going to see that that's going to give us a problem later on. But that's the way these keep clear rules work. They're instant switches, and people like Rich and I spend our time umpiring, we spend our time flicking the switch between two boats about which one has to keep clear. So we constantly know, and that's where we always start. So when a boat passes head to wind, completes attack, or even comes from astern and establishes an overlap, the rule changes instantly. The boat that has to keep clear might stay the same, and it might change. Just because the rule changes, it doesn't always change the boat that has to keep clear. So if you are coming from astern, going downwind, who has to keep clear? Which rule do you apply? It's really easy, isn't it? Now, if yellow goes here and gets an overlap on the windward side of blue, who has to keep clear? It didn't change. The rule changed, but the keep clear boat didn't change. If yellow had come down to leeward, who has to keep clear now? So the boat that the rule switched and the boat that had to keep clear switched as well. So we've just got to watch that. And again, it's when the boat that has to keep clear switches that the rules create a problem that we're going to get into when we look a bit further on. Just stay with this for now, please.
You mentioned completed tack. Could you just clarify that for us?
Any guesses? What? This is where, I mean, I can tell you the answer, I hope, but it's where I use my friend to make sure that I don't get it wrong. So what rule am I looking for?
13.
So I'm looking for rule 13, and when I find it, it says, after a boat passes head to wind, she shall keep clear of other boats until she is on a close hauled course. Nothing to do with sails full. It used to be a long time ago, if you're old enough. I could go through you why did the rule change, but that would take more time than I think we need. The important thing is when you're on a close. Now, what's a close haul course? Some people sail higher than others. How much higher do you sail when you're trying to pinch and get up there? 5 degrees, 6, easily. Some boats less, some boats more. When you've just completed a tack, are you likely to be, is your course instantly higher or lower as close hauled? Lower. Your close haul course is a variable thing. It's not fixed. We're going to come back to this theme all the time. Do not go to the rules and expect black and white answers. And I think it's crazy to talk about black and white answers in the rule. The more I've looked at it, the more crazy it is, and the more comfortable I am. And I'll show you how we use that. Brilliant. So, there's another statement in the book, because all we've talked about is keeping clear. But there's a statement, when you see something with the blue background, by the way, it's a straight quote out of the rule book. And it says, a boat has right of way when the other boat is required to keep clear. So when we know which boat has to keep clear, we also know which boat is right of way. It's the other one. And there are some rules that talk about the rights and obligations of a right of way boat. And it uses this system, so it doesn't matter which keep clear rule we apply. Once we've found one and the other boat's the right of way boat, we can now talk to the right of way boat. And we don't care which keep clear rule has caused it to be the right of way. Okay? All right so far? I'll keep saying, all right so far. I'll give you a chance to say, hang on, I'm not clear. So when we know which boat must keep clear, we also know the other boat has right of way. But a right of way boat, and the clue is in the second sentence. However, some rules of section B, D and C limit the actions of the right of way boat. You can't do as you please just because you're the right of way boat. There are some limitations. And we're going to find out what those might be. The other thing to notice, if you've got 3 boats in a line, what will inevitably happen? Which boat has to keep clear of blue? Red. Which one has to keep clear of yellow? Red. So you're often the keep clear boat and the right of way boat at the same time. As soon as you have 3 boats in a row or involved in a situation, you will always have one of them at least has to keep clear, maybe 2. So at the same time, you are often the keep clear boat and the right of way boat, and you have different obligations depending on those 2 rules that apply at the same time. In this case, it's the same rule. It might be a port and starboard with another boat. It gets tricky, doesn't it? I'm going to keep coming back to do not, well, I shouldn't use the statement, do not. My strong advice is do not go round the racecourse using the rules as a sword. Team racing, slightly different. Generally, fleet racing, do not go round the course using the rules as a sword, as Roger was hinting at. What was the guy who sailed the Tornado? Red, white?
Yeah.
One had 2 gold medals.
I think he did in the end, did he? But nonetheless, he was pretty good.
He didn't know a single rule. And whenever we talked about, I coached the team at the time, whenever we talked to him about the rules, he said, John, I'm always in front, I don't need to know a single, all right? It's a bit easier if you're in a tornado on an Olympic course and there's nobody else around. Until they used to sail on the same course with the Dutchman, and then
They did on occasion.
they got a bit tricky. But there you go. So I'm not here. I think I'm on exactly the same page as Roger. We're here to understand the rules to make the game more enjoyable for everybody. We're not here to teach people to be barroom lawyers, protest committee lawyers, because I don't think it's, well, if you want to play the game that way, good luck. Right, so we've got the keep clear rules up there. I keep putting that image up there. So let's just have a look. Get your cards ready. So you're going to be in situation one, you're going to be looking for a blue or yellow card, because there's only 2 boats there. Are you ready to hold up a card? 3, 2, 1, go! Who has to keep clear? We've got port and starboard sorted. Some might say that's progress. Okay, ready to go again. We sort of did this one already, so you should be ready. 3, 2, 1, go! We've got Windward Leeward sorted. Fantastic. Okay. Situation 3. 3, 2, 1, go! Which rule did we apply? Okay, we'll see how I wonder what's going to happen this time. Three, 2, 1, go! Blue, blue, yellow, yellow, blue, yellow, blue, yellow, blue, blue.
It depends which boat you're in, doesn't it? Really?
That's the Roger Yeoman theory. Oh, we need some help, don't we, from my friend? Which possible rules, looking up here, are we looking at? So why did the yellow people put the yellow card up? Which rule were they applying? Ahead of stern. And the other people, the blue cards, were applying port and starboard. Right, so those are the 2 rules we need to look at and see if we get a clue. 10 starts off, when boats are on opposite tacks, the port tack boat shall keep clear. Rule 12 starts off, when boats are on the same tack, the boat astern shall keep clear. The answer's in our friend. Shall we have another go? Who has to keep clear?
Blue.
Blue. Which is port. Port has to keep clear of starboard. Always, always, always. Unless we're into returning to start or the forward down below. Have we learnt something?
Yes.
Well, some of the people who had the yellow card up. Okay, we've got a start line here. Which one has to keep clear? 3, 2, 1, go!
Blue.
Right, does the start line help blue in any way? No! Get over the line. The start line does not protect you in any way or change your obligation to keep clear as a windward boat. There's all sorts of other things that are going to happen on the start line. We're constantly here just looking at 2 boats in a frozen situation. Which one has to keep clear? It doesn't change whatever else is going on. That's all we're doing at the moment.
John, can I just say, that happens all the time here, of course. Realistically, in a club racing setting, you know, what actually do you suggest should be a remedy for the starboard, for the yellow boat who's aggrieved?
Well, you can try shouting, and we'll talk about the concept of shouting.
I really mean a post-incident.
I love it. I coach the kids at Lymington, and they're fairly hot junior youth squad in the office. Okay. Oh, so what's happening when you're shouting at somebody?
You're not concentrating.
What are you not doing exactly? What are you not doing? You're not looking at the sails, the trim of the boat, the wind, the water. You're just shouting. So do you think you're sailing smart when you're shouting? Oh. So if we can encourage other people to shout, fantastic. Carry on shouting. Carry on shouting, because you're not, and I say smart rather than fast, because some people will instinctively sail fast. But the fact is they will not be looking at all sorts of other things while they're shouting at another boat.
That's why I get my crew to shout.
Well, and that is, I think that is actually very, you're laughing about it, but actually it's quite sensible. In a
Remarkably sensible. See?
For you, Roger, that's amazing, in fact.
There used to be a time and opportunity clause.
Well, yeah, we're going to get there.
It's still there.
We're going to get there.
Is it still there?
It's still there, but we're not going to get there yet. But if we unpack keeping clear, and that's getting into giving room.
Shout at people.
If we unpack that, it's, for me, it's a bit like any rule. The fact is, the blue boat just should not be staying there. The rules do not permit you to stay there. You are going to break windward leeward if you stay there. Pure and simple. And we really need ways of educating people. And we can talk about it probably after the lunch. You know, the ultimate way is, I've had enough, I'm going to protest and take you into the room because you're not listening or you're not learning. But I think there are some things that we're going to talk about later on about what we might be able to do to help the sport be a better sport. Because it spoils the game, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to avoid, is people spoiling the game. So by the way, so here's a really awkward question. So do you think the people who really need to be here are here? I think you've answered the question. So we need a plan, and we need to know what can we do about it. I think it's a really tricky subject, but worth some discussion. Listening, talking. So this one, just in case you cannot see, if it's not very clear. So the yellow boat has actually gone from position 1, which is bow over the line. My pointer's not working. Position 1, bow over the line, to backwards to position 2, and the blue boat has gone from position 1 also backward to position 2. Okay, which one has to keep clear? Ready with the cards? 3, 2, 1, go! Okay, a little bit of doubt here. So we do know which rule we're looking at, don't we? We've just got the one rule to look at. 21.4, 21.3, a boat moving astern, or sideways to windward, which optimists can do pretty well, through the water by backing a sail, shall keep clear of one that is not. So blue is going backwards through the water, but not as a result of backing her sail. So she's being pushed back by the wind. I mean, even with no current, the breeze will push you backwards if you're sitting head to wind. You'll be drifting backwards. And it is moving through the water, so it's not over the land. So if the tide's pushing everybody back, that doesn't count for this at all. Which makes it, again, pretty tricky. Now, how do you know when a boat is going forwards, pushes the boom out, and actually, you see when they push the boom out because you see when the sail starts backing. That's pretty recognisable. But when do they actually start going backwards through the water? Can you really see that? Again, trying to use the rules as a sword is fraught with difficulties because there's something else we don't know. Yes, sir.
John, sitting back here, I couldn't see that the yellow boat had backed her sail.
All right, okay.
If we just take it,
It's a good excuse.
If the yellow boat hadn't backed her sail, and they were both going astern without backing their sail, then keeps clear.
Yes, so a boat moving astern, sideways or whatever, through the water by backing her sail shall keep clear of one that is not.
But neither of them are backing their sails. So what
So if neither are backing the sail, then it's ahead astern.
It is.
So this rule doesn't apply at all because neither backed the sail. So mostly, when your X-boat's on the start, I guess, I mean, I've not yet seen an X-boat really back the sail and go backwards.
John, is the head of stern based on the bow of the boat or the direction of travel?
Direction of travel. Direction of travel. But there's, we can have a long philosophy about course. What is a course? Is the course the line of the boat, or is it the track that it actually makes? Even the word course in the rule book, you can interpret to mean, and in fact it means about 3 different things in different, I mean, there's the phrase, hold her course. Does that mean she continues to change course if she's changing course, or does it mean she's got to carry on the heading that she's pointing? We can spend a lot of time on that, because the answer's different, it depends on the situation. Simple set of rules. All right, so far?
Yes,
Yep.
sir.
Is yellow doing 21.1 at this point?
No, the start gun hasn't gone.
Okay.
So she's not returning to start. You can't return to start until after the starting signal. But good question, well spotted. Right, we've got those sorted out then, haven't we? So this one, who has to keep clear? Ready with your cards? 3 is racing speed. 3, 2, 1, go! So the fact that blue might be considered to be the inside boat, no effect. Port tack has to keep clear of starboard. Gets trickier. Now we've got lots of colours. They are pink, turquoise, purple, blue and yellow. So which boats have to keep clear? You've got 5 seconds for this one.
Yeah, everything across.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go! We should have every. There's only one boat that does not have to keep clear in that situation. There's only one that does not have to keep clear. That's the leeward boat of the whole lot. All the others have to keep clear. So you have 4 cards up. With it? Grand. Time to move on to something more complicated. So what is keeping clear? We talked about it. What's it mean? Don't hit?
Not interfering.
Not interfering?
Stop the other boat from
Not making
changing
someone else
course.
keep clear of you.
Closer?
Giving them room to manoeuvre.
Giving them room to manoeuvre? So the first thing to note is whenever you see it in the rule book, the words are in italics. And I'm sure you all know that means it's a defined term. And if you go to the front of the rule book, you will find the definition of keeping clear. Anytime a word appears in italics, you can find it in the front of the book. It's probably the most missed thing in the book, actually.
John,
Yeah.
sorry. Do you mind going back to the start round of the 5 boats?
Yeah?
Where's the gun gone?
Right. It's pre-start, is it?
Doesn't matter? Does it matter?
No, not at this stage.
I'm only asking you which boat has to keep clear. So the only rules you can use are the ones in that list.
And none have gone beyond head to wind.
None have gone beyond head to wind. And if you are head to wind, which tack are you on? No. Should we use our friend again?
What's the answer to that?
The one that you were on.
Which tack do you want to get?
Thank you. When head to wind, it's the tack that you were on before you were head to wind. So until you've gone past head to wind, you're always on a tack, port or starboard. Even if you're tacking, you're still on a tack, port or starboard. Okay. Cool, thank you for taking me back. That's good to understand. So what is keeping clear? So it's in italics. And here's the definition. A boat keeps clear of a right-of-way boat if the right-of-way boat can sail her course with no need to take avoiding action. So if the right-of-way boat decides, I have to do something, because there is another rule that says don't hit other boats, if you think you have to do something and you take action, by definition, the other boat has not kept clear of you. You can have another discussion about, was it reasonable for her? I was passing at least 2 metres ahead, she had no need to bear away at all. We get another situation where we don't really know. But the definition, does the right-of-way boat need to take avoiding action? If yes, you did not keep clear. However, there's another sentence, and I'm going to move on and show you why we need the second sentence in a moment. If boats are overlapped, you keep clear if the right-of-way boat can also change course in both directions without immediately making contact. So this port and sail, I'm not sure, it might be on the next slide anyway, but we come in here, blue crosses ahead, yellow passes behind, yellow does not need to take avoiding action. Did blue keep clear?
Yes.
Yes. The problem if we only have that sentence and we trundle along like this, does blue actually need to take avoiding action?
No.
You can keep going, and it can be really, really close, and you can just keep going and keep going and keep going. And the rules don't like that, because that would allow what we call the windward boat to press the leeward boat too close. So we have the second sentence, when the boats are overlapped, which is the right-of-way boat? Blue. Can change course in both directions without immediately making contact. So if it's so close that there would be, and we can have another discussion, what's immediate mean? Is that 0.1 of a second, half a second? What is it? It's immediate. And we use these phrases. It is probably different, do you think? Do you think it depends on the boats you're sailing? Yeah. For sure. If you're in a laser, immediate contact is probably going to be less than 1/10 of a second almost. I mean, it depends on the conditions. But if you're sailing a 140-foot J-class boat, so the rule doesn't want the windward boat to be so close that the leeward boat can't even go down the waves or just do a little bit of wiggle. And we use a term quite often. It's not. We don't like using rules or words that are not in the book, but there's a nice little phrase we use. The leeward boat is entitled to wiggle room. Enough room to wiggle. Not to change course violently, enough room to wiggle.
Can I just ask, isn't it the yellow boat that B is referring to?
When the boats are over that, the right-of-way boat, which is the right-of-way boat?
Blue boat.
I see what you mean, yeah.
So can the right-of-way boat change course in either direction without immediate contact? So it is talking to the right-of-way boat to